Chinga! Boy, you're dragging something, boy. You're dragging your muffler, boy. Ay, chingare. There we go. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning, good morning. Yeah. Hit the thumbs up, guys. Hit the thumbs up, guys. I don't eat breakfast. I eat thumbs up for breakfast. Brunch. I do brunch. Oh, so I was just laying in the bed last night, and I started thinking about, a lot of us are, it's a range of ages of people here, but one thing that's really synonymous about being an American growing up as a child in America. Hey, I like that, Benner. So, you think about, we have the DARE program, and we have, stranger danger programs, and we have all these programs to educate children, which, we know that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? We know this. So you think about growing up as a kid in America, right? Everything is stranger danger, like, you know what I mean? Like in America, we are petrified. There's this abduction panic. There really is. It's an abduction panic, right? And there's been an abduction panic in things like America's Most Wanted. Although they've been really helpful, even if they ever only just help, hey, good morning, Bob. Even if they've only ever just helped solve and bring home one child and get justice for one child, then it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, right? But what are we doing? What have we been doing with the abduction education for the last 50, 60 years? I don't know, right? So let me tell you what happens, guys. What happens is you're born in America. There seems to be this strange dynamic in America where, I think everyone who's my age or somewhere around in the DARE program, right? We grew up and they came with the 2 pieces of wood that folded, and they had all the different little, look like drugs, all the different little vials and stuff, and you got to walk up and see it, and they're like, listen, if you see any of this shit at home, you come back to school and you tell the teacher, right? So we had an open line, and it was cute in its design. We had an open line between, we had an open, we would create a familial disconnect, right? So in schools, they'll create a familial disconnect. They'll do a familial disconnect in the way they want to be the ones to teach your kids about sex. They want to be kids about, all the things that actually parents should do, right? Things that really don't have a whole lot to do with clinical learning, but more to do with the things that parents should be discussing with their children, right? So you saw this phase out of the DARE program, right? It's still there, but man, when's the last time you saw somebody wearing a brand new DARE shirt? There isn't, right? So that program, it just isn't what it was, because what it did, and with the change of laws with marijuana and different things. That program, it essentially, it was built to indoctrinate children to go to school and tell on their parents, right? They wanted the separation of church and school, and they wanted it's a complete separation. So now I'm going to start delving into how this stranger danger thing is actually a fallacy. The stranger danger thing is a disconnect too, right? It's a disconnect. So what happens is from day dot, from the very first day, right? What happens is the schools and the societal pressures, we villainize the world to our children, right? We villainize our world to the children and tell them, hey, if mommy or daddy lose you in the store, or we're shopping and we've got our back turned and somebody tries to talk to you, just scream stranger danger, right? So essentially what America wants you to do is vilify society or other people to your child, right? So let's talk about the statistics though, right? And that's the thing that I don't understand. That's where my disconnect is, right? So we have this stranger danger culture in America where we absolutely lie to children. Seems like American parents are fucking good at lying to their children. From day dot, there is a conspiracy in America to fucking lie to children. We got the fucking Easter Bunny. We got Santa Claus. We got the fucking Tooth Fairy. We got the Easter Bunny. Do I need to go on? Do I need to go on about how Americans fucking lie to children? Now, has any of us in here ever been one of the big brothers or sisters who got in trouble for telling the truth to a sibling about any of those celestial costumes that you can put on? Did you ever get in trouble for telling your little brother Billy, Santa Claus is not real? Now all of a sudden in America, you're in big trouble with your parents for telling. That's the first lie kids find out their parents told them. So somehow we're indoctrinated with these lies at such a young age that there is no confliction once we have children of our own and we come to the time where we're faced with making these same sets of systemic lies to our children. Most of us don't even have to ask twice. We don't pray on the answer. Should I lie to my kids about all this shit for as long as you can keep the fucking lie going? 10, 11 years maybe? I think around 12 or 13 you start getting hip to the game. Now, 20 fucking thousand kids go missing every year. Every year. A great majority of those cases are resolved. Whether the child is recovered, whether remains are recovered, whether they do the right thing and bring the child back, whatever. right? So that means familial abductions, guys. We are indoctrinated in America where we think we need to lie to these kids and tell them 20,000 fucking kids. Oh, hold on. 20,000 kids every year go missing in America. 350 of those are that mysterious third-party stranger danger that we've been lying to these kids all their life about. For generations, we've been lying to children about strangers. And there just is no data to support that all of this awareness we keep raising about essentially indoctrinating our children to grow up and hate their neighbor. It says in the Bible, you ought to love thy neighbor, right? You ought to bring your neighbor into the bosom of your family, right? I'm just talking on the last, yeah, much more than 20,000, whatever it is. That number fluctuates, but that 350 legitimate abductions that come from the stranger danger is what America primes the children to believe, that there is this abduction panic. There is not an abduction panic. What we have is 300, and that's roughly a child a day goes missing from a stranger danger, third party situation. So we spend all this time educating these children to watch out for scenarios that are a fraction of the percentage of actual abductions, right? We don't go through the school and pull the kids aside and say, hey, as a child, you know, as a child of this age bracket or whatever, however you want to structure the census, as a child of this age now, you are becoming, you're becoming of age to put yourself into a genre of kids that will be taken by your own family, that will be hurt by your own family, right? Now, how does this play into Don and Candace's situation? Well, I'll tell you, because even though family abductions make over 90% of those abductions, that's what makes the calculation. I see something going on in the chat, and I've been trying to ignore it because I'm driving. So we don't tell. Well, I'll get with that. So we grow up, and the other thing also in America, it's around the world. We sing these crazy violent story rhymes, storytelling rhymes, whatever they're called. Humpty Dumpty fell on the wall. Jack and Jill fell down, broke. You know, it's just on and on and on. The Pied Piper. So we have this thing in America where we definitely try to indoctrinate our children with lies, right? How do you tell a child growing up when abduction comes to the forefront and it's something that you need to discuss? When it's time to talk about stranger danger, what would actually be educational would be to tell your child, hey, there is a stranger danger out there, but the stranger danger is probably, you know, if you ever get abducted, son or daughter, it's probably going to be by me or mom, or, you know, someone in our family may abduct you, right? Chances are, if you're ever abducted, son or daughter, it's going to be by a family member. So what do we get? What do we get out of society by creating children that grow up to be adults that have been persuaded that every single person that's out there you need to be afraid of, right? That's not the way I grew up. I'm an 80s baby. I was born in 79. So in 79, like what you had to worry about was, like the aspirin crisis. You had an issue in my day where there was a particular kind of glue that they would use on certain kind of stickers, like kids stickers that had an LSD property in it. There was different things you had to worry about. And really back then, abduction wasn't, abduction was kind of, it came in kind of like cutting, right? Like a lot of us older folks, we never heard about any people cutting themselves in order to get a release. And it be like, this is a new issue, right? This isn't like, in my day, people cut themselves in order to commit right? They didn't cut on themselves to feel better about anything, right? Like cutting, there is no, cutting is the end all, right? So, I just have a problem with, how do we educate and fix the abduction issue, guys? How do we solve this abduction issue? Well, I would say that this abduction issue, it can be solved a couple of few ways. Now, you have, I've heard proponents for a like a chip that you would put in a dog. Like I've heard people say that, and I think that if that were a scenario that helped a parent sleep better at night, and it was a non-invasive little procedure to put it in, if that's what you want to do, that's your business, right? But how do we solve the abduction crisis in America? I don't know. Because how do you educate children about the fact that if they go missing 9 times out of 10, it's going to be someone in their family that abducts them? There's no education for that. I mean, there's no way to educate and prepare and be preventative in that respect. I'm going to go in here real quick and get a soda. I'm going to take you with me. When I get back, I want to talk about what the hell's going on in the chat, because I'm having a hard time keeping my train of thought, because I'm seeing a few different issues going on. So, hey, Wildflower. Hey, Q. I don't do Facebook. No. Don't be sorry. Shoot. This here is why we do it, ladies. Morning, small fries. I want to tell you, Wildflower. Yeah, that's good. Mountain Girl has 0 videos. One by one. It's all we can do, guys. One by one. One by one. I had a pretty good talk last night with Wildflower and Q. We've got some really educated ladies out there, really putting some stuff together, and it's a really cool thing to see, because sometimes I feel like I'm really limited by how many intelligent people are around. And it's good to see that Q and Wildflower kind of have got their own thing going, and it they got their own team going. Smarter than the cops. That's right. Hold on one second, guys. Hey, Mr. Samuel, how you doing, sir? Hold on, guys. No cash back, please.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Samuel. All right. I'm here. I will reappear. Yeah, guys. So, you know, I'll even, I'll even tell you that, Samuel, morning Samuel in the store. I'll even tell you that, that Don B and I, well, he commented on a video, and we, you know, we could call it banter, but it wasn't even really banter. I can tell you that Don B is, I think he may have the people that he banters with, but I think Don B probably, you know, he's a human. He walks upright on two legs, so he's capable of making mistakes like all the rest of us, right? But Don B emailed me last night. I was already in the sack, but you know, we commented back and forth, and I don't know what it will bring, but what we were commenting about was, what we were emailing about rather was just, hey, my issue isn't with you as a human and what your name is and where you live at. Like, that's not my issue with you. My issue is that I want you to understand that you can do things at this point in the investigation that can really, really ruin justice, right? And that's not what we want. Like, okay, so Don, we think that, you know, when I say we, I mean you. We think that Don is guilty on your channel. I get it. I get it. But this is the thing. When you do that publicly, there's other people watching, right? And so, no, sir. I know that there's parts of us when we're not informed on what really goes on with the judicial system. We think that in the beginning, if we make them as guilty looking to as many people as we can, that we'll for sure get a conviction. No, Mr. Buchanan, that's not what happens. What does happen is when we publicize all the really intricate, sensitive details, what happens is you now get to a point actually in justice where a judge or a prosecutor may be forced to make a decision about bringing a case forward or not, right? Because if you've got a weak case and justice has already been tainted, and then you try to bring someone in front of the court, they will take into account the ideology that so what happens first, Mr. Buchanan, is with this sort of coverage, what happens is we remove person's right to a jury trial. That is due process. Everyone has the right to sit on a jury of 12 in front of 12 of their peers, right? Now, we automatically remove that portion of the due process because no defense attorney, after this kind of coverage, no defense attorney is going to come and say, Don, Candace, you know, now we have charges against you, you're in court, but I would not advise you to sit in front of a jury of 12 of your peers that we pull from this county, right? Never happened, man. So then what happens is that point, that person is forced to then find alternate routes to get justice, whether that be, you know, you start looking at plea bargain options, right? If there's a lot of different ways in its chess, right? So if you cannot, you know, so the prosecutors, they'll run some sort of risk assessment, right, on the case. If it's not, they'll put a team together, and that risk assessment will let them think tank what the probabilities are for a conviction on a case. Right now, what happens is that there's certain types of cases that they would prefer to not try, and instead of try them and lose, right? Because the public's watching, right? So when you have essays and you have things that involve children, there sometimes is a motivation to not even bring cases. We heard about it in the Night Stalker, actually. They dropped a bunch of sexual assault charges against Richard Ramirez because they didn't, the prosecutors made the decision that they didn't want to put the children on the stand, right? So, there's all kinds of dynamics when you start talking about kids, right? And so Don, I just want you to be aware that my plight isn't against you. My plight isn't against AB. My plight isn't against, Chris M. Yes, out of frustration, I too fall into ad hominem attacks, right? It's like, oh, you're fucking this up and you're bald-headed. Well, I'm human. I do it just like everyone else, right? Although I can identify when I slip, I'm about to slip into an ad hominem. I'm about to tell this guy he's a fucking idiot or ugly or, whatever, right? That doesn't have anything to do with summer, right? We are all doing it right now. We are all compassion fatigued, right? But what we all actually want, if you want Don and Candace filleted and laid on the barbecue, then guess what you don't want. You don't want justice for Summer. There are people out there that want to physically harm Don and Candace. And if you physically harm Don and Candace and they get pulled into the criminal aspect of this investigation, there's no justice, right? When it's dope dealers against dope dealers or dope heads against dope heads or the scenarios that it seems like society creates where badness can go against each other and just wipe itself out. This is not that. This is not that scenario. This scenario is of a beautiful young little girl who has the rest of her life in front of her, and we got people playing with her justice, right? Now, a lot of people are like, Benny, how are you so well versed at what goes on legally in criminal cases? You can run my background. I have an extensive history of being in criminal courts as I was 20 something. I had a lot of problems in my 20s. In my 20s, I was a gangster. Part of my 30s too. So the very first case I ever caught, I was 19. Been in a little juvenile trouble, but nothing big. And I had some friends, and they robbed a man for a lot of money behind a marijuana deal. I was not there. I did, however, arrange the meeting. I was like, yeah, this is my buddy. He's going to bring it to you. This guy really trusted me. I really trusted the guy with the weed, and he brought a duffel bag and had a pistol, no weed. So when he got there, he pistol whipped the man and his wife, took their money. It was a considerable amount, and then they went on the run. Well, he ended up getting picked out in a lineup, and there was another white gentleman that was with the African-American gentleman, my friend Rocky. There was another gentleman that was with him, and he was a Caucasian. Well, oddly enough, this gentleman looked an awful lot like me. So this gentleman had people from his family, or not necessarily his family, but he was able to get people to call in what's called a silent observer tip. And they exchanged this other Caucasian for me. So my charges were armed robbery and felony firearm. So they were seeking a life sentence, and had it not been for my grandpa, they would have had me dead to rights. But what I ended up finding out is that as a 19-year-old, I was facing a life sentence for a first offense. And had I had a court-appointed attorney, I would have never gotten the polygraph that I needed. So I sat in jail as a 19-year-old for a long time, right? Because family was like, nope, we're not dealing with it. You were dealing drugs and fucking around. Like, you sit it out, right? Like, we'll see you when you come home. And my grandpa, he defied all odds, and he's like, man, fuck that. So he gave me some money for an attorney. And this attorney, I still remember his name, Jim Baumgartner. Awesome attorney. Played football at the University of Michigan. Anyhow, I never stepped a day in court. I took the polygraph. I didn't have to tell on nobody. I refused to answer any questions that had anybody else's name in it, right? I refused. I was like, if you're gonna ask me, and I was a gangster back then. Nowadays, if I got a buddy who commits an armed robbery and I get in that same situation, man, I'm gonna snitch on your bitch ass. I'm gonna call the police. But back then I had a different code about me. And I was able to beat the life sentence by answering questions on a machine. That was enough to exclude me. They brought the polygraph results in front of the prosecutor. Prosecutor already had an issue with the reliability of a couple of the people that turned me into a tip line. And so they dropped the case. And that was my first interaction with the criminal justice system, and my first one was tainted. And so hit the like button, guys. Yeah, I did. I turned my life around, but you know what? It took another 20 years after that. It wasn't until I was 34 or 35 before I actually made it around the corner. I was making the turn, but so I dealt with a lot of people who said that I was who I was. I was an armed robber. I must have pistol whipped this lady and cut her forehead all open, and I must be this bad guy because somebody I know was a bad guy. And in the law of the land, in the law, in the courts, you actually are you're guilty by association. It's called conspiracy, right? Thank you for the big head, the good head on my shoulders. See, you can be a lawyer and it take you about 10 years to get where you need to be to sit in front of them judges and sit in them oak chairs and really just be able to do your fucking shit. Thank you, Autumn. But you know what? You can go through one trial that looks like it's going to go sour, and you will be just as knowledgeable as a 6, 8, 10-year law student. Okay? It's bad. Criminal justice is bad. But guess what? It's a system, and it does work. It grinds slowly. It makes mistakes because it's designed by the hand of man. So, because we are flawed in our creation, although we're perfect, we're flawed. When we create things, everything has a flaw. Something is askew, right? It is human nature to leave something askew on purpose, because if you start to perform and pump out perfect product, they will expect perfection every time. So there is there is this ideal that something needs to be askew, right? Nothing is perfect, right? Not even Don and Candace. But what you have to understand, ooh, I'd be careful doing that, Flower. What you got to understand is that the judicial system is a for-profit system. It guises itself under the costume or the mask of community rehabilitation, family reunifications, all of that. It's what it prides itself on, are those principles. But nowhere in those principles, see, this is the thing. When you've been the victim of a crime advocates will call you from the police department. They're in the same building as the police. Crime advocates call. Now, crime advocates are great because they essentially are your voice and they're for you, right? If you have a crime committed against you by a police, crime advocates, like the crime advocate does not care who committed the crime. They're only worried about the person that was affected or afflicted. That's all they care about. And that's all we should care about. We are not the police. I do not own any handcuffs. I don't own a handcuff key. I don't own a taser. I don't even own a tool belt to put all this shit in. I don't own none of these things. So for me to try to do the job of the police, I don't say, oh, fuck, Dak Prescott's having a shitty game. I'm going to go in there and move him out of the way and take his pads and, I can do better than him. Like, that's not it. He's in that position because of who he is and what he can do. We are here because of what we can do. If you don't have no handcuffs and you don't have no gun and you don't have no taser, what you need to do, and this isn't for anybody specific, but for everyone specific, shut the fuck up. Do what the fuck you know how to do. Right? My dad used to say, if you can't be good, just be good at it. Now, if you're one of those people that just has a hard time slapping your ass with either hand and you're in the true crime community and you're fucking holding precious children and the details of their abduction in your hands and you can't hold it without spilling it, this ain't for you. See, it's guys out here that want to help find someone else's kids, but don't know where their own kids are. Right? We'll talk about a couple of more things and then we're going to close this out. Yesterday, Chasing Truth did a live. And I think that everyone knows that's following this case. You know who Chasing Truth is. You may or may not know what's going on with her husband Scott, but he has contracted COVID. And in one of her lives, I mean, he had some blood clot issues, right? It's very, very serious. Blood clots, as we know, create strokes and heart attacks and all sorts of different things. And somebody thought that it would be cute because they either don't like what Chasing's saying or they don't like her specifically. But somebody got in her chat and made a comment and it said, R.I.P. Scott. With the connotation that what he's suffering from he's going to meet his demise. And so what I want to do now, right now, is I want to ask everybody when we get off this live, go into your prayer place and lift Scott up. lift chasing up. Lift up Jace, lift up that whole family. And when you're done doing that, pray for the heart of the person that said that to her. Because that's where the real meat is at. That's where the meat and the potatoes are, right? See, we forget. We get caught up in what goes on this internet, and we forget. If we've got a problem with the Don B's or the Chris M's or whoever, breaking them down online isn't showing any compassion that we say we have. I'm guilty. You have to pray. You have to try to pray these things out of these people for them. You cannot go at the person who said R.I.P. Scott and think that you're going to make any difference in that person's life. You let God sort that out. That's for God to meddle in. That's not for us to meddle in. Right? Because it says in the Bible that you ought to pray for the things you want for yourself, for your enemy. That's what we do. God will handle it differently. Right? It says in the Bible that we also serve a spiteful and a jealous God. So he will do the redeeming for us. He just has to know that we have an issue with it. So, I hope that Dawn B, she is a hell of a woman. Man, that woman is that woman has a lot on her back and her shoulders, even when her family is running pandemic free. Right? I mean, when I heard that, what flashed into my mind was like, I wish somebody would say that to me, because I'll make a bad decision that day. And so thankfully, I'm so thankful for Chasing Truth that she's so strong that person chose to do that on a channel with someone so strong like Chasing and Scott, where she can handle that. Right? She can actually handle that. I can't handle that. Somebody tell me that they wish that or not wish that, but they say R.I.P. before my wife's time or my child's time. Man, me and you we're gonna be moving some furniture around this bitch. It's a misunderstanding when I see you, and I'm looking, right? Like, so, everyone lift up Chasing and Scott and Jason and their whole family, the whole Chasing Truth family. Like, lift them up, please. And lift up the person that has that kind of hate in their heart, right? So, guys, what I'd like to do at this time is I would like to talk about mandated reporters. So, mandated reporter is someone that's taken an oath with typically the county, the state, or the government, to protect something. So we have this oath. We have this terms of service on YouTube. And never in those terms of service does it say, if you see somebody in real life neglecting their children, or if you see somebody online neglecting their children, you've mandated yourself to be a reporter, right? Guess what? The only people that are ever mad about CPS coming into their life are people who have CPS come into their life and then they make some arrangements. If you successfully get through those arrangements, at the end, you want to know what happens is a lot of times the people who are mad at the people for calling CPS will ultimately come around, their mind will change, and then they'll be appreciative that someone cared enough about them to step in and help them navigate that issue. It's like, I have a sister right now, and she's really struggling with some issues in her life. And right now I'm public enemy number one, because I got sober and I stayed sober, and to other people it looked like it was really easy. For my sister, it hasn't been so easy. And so, I took an oath, right, to myself and with my sister, that as much as I love you, if you're drinking and you're still hurting yourself, I can't stop you hurting you. I can stop someone else from hurting you, but when you're hurting you, I can't get in that fight, right? It's like you can get rich selling tickets to a fight where people can watch you whip your own ass. That's a hell of a fight. That's a fight nobody wants to miss. Fuck Mike Tyson and Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. Like, to buy tickets to a fight to watch a grown man or a grown woman whip their own ass, that is entertainment, right? So what we need to do is we need to pray for those who do not know. We need to pray for those who are unaware of the trickle down and the longevity and the reach of the things that we say. We want justice. Guess how you get justice? By being quiet. Why do you think when they have high profile trials and we hear about the jury instructions, right? So you get jury instructions in the beginning, juries will get instruction all the way through, sentencing instruction, so on and so forth. Sequestering, right? They don't even want the 12 people and the 2 alternates, that's 14 people. They don't want any of those 14 people even talking to each other unless it's in deliberation, right? They don't even want those people going online and talking about the shit, or walking down the hallway from the hotel they're all sequestered in with other jurors, and go down and let's have a nightcap and talk about what happened in the case today. It's against the rules. That's against the rules, right? Let's say a juror comes on and says, yes, I have no opinion. Well, don't you know? Defense attorneys, prosecutors, they got a whole list of everyone's name. They are watching everyone's social media. Come on, know this. So as soon as a juror comes on, and it's not like you can post when you're a juror, but let you post something about the case or something that shows that your credibility could be an issue, you'll come back to court the next day and they'll excuse you. They'll excuse you. How about that? There's another thing floating around. Somebody created a channel to that. They popped up in comment sections or live or something. I couldn't really tell where the screenshot was at. But so don't do that channel. Made a statement saying, I'm Candace's mom. And Summer was half asleep and fell down the stairs and broke her neck. And Don took body and put the body inside of a wall of one of these houses he's working at. And that she's not going to allow her daughter to that particular house and, let them sniff inside of a wall. It's like a Egyptian mummy. There'll never be any smell. There'll never be any fluids leak out, down and out onto the floor. There'll never be any greasy spots from body fluids leaking through the dry, though. I mean, it is just like a vacuum. It's years. Right? I don't know, guys. It gets harder and harder. So, yeah, there's probably 10 new channels named after me, I'm sure. Look at that, though. Hoo-ah. Hoo-ah. Look at that. Boy, I'm picking so many cucumbers right now. I got peppers, I got melons, I got watermelons. But it's going to come in stages. The melons they'll start coming on once it cools down a little bit. Didn't really get a whole lot of blueberries. Didn't get one guava pineapple this year. I think next year for that one. The avocado tree, it should start making avocados next year too. And then we got the kumquat tree there. We've finally, it's so hot here. As you can see, it's blossoming now. See the little blossoms? It's blossomed, I think, 2 or 3 times already. So there's what the baby kumquats look like. Right there. So you can see we're gonna have some. There's some little baby kumquats, but it just gets so hot they just shrivel up and fall off. So you can see down in here where they all fall. So, well, we're being patient. We're being patient. Anyways, guys, I thank you all for joining me this morning. We'll have some more content throughout the day. I'm sure of it. Seems to be prime time for bullshit. So, guys, pray for the trolls. They need love too. And remember, I love you all individually. If you're not a member, please consider being a member. That's one way you can help the channel. We are going to start having members-only content over in the Discord. So once we get all the bots in the Discord, we will we'll open it up and we'll let hell's fire go. So guys, remember, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. Thank you for allowing me to talk to you this morning. God bless you all.